of the conversation for one moment. Last night, after the show, I was invited aboard a Navy ship because it was the end of Fleet Week here in San Francisco. And as a proud member of the U.S. Navy League, which is a civilian support group for the U.S. Navy, I secured 2 invitations to the Bonhomme Richard, which is almost 1,000-foot assault landing craft. It's an amazing ship. I've been on it before. And what I like about it is seeing the dignity of the naval officers on the ship. I like seeing the positive energy of all of the testosterone. And I look at the ship and I say, how the heck do they make this thing run? How do they still have boys in America who can shoot a machine gun, drive a Humvee, drive a ship, fire a rocket? How do they still make boys like this? I know they don't make them in San Francisco. I know that they can't be found anywhere in Pelosi's district because of her values. I know they can't be found in George Miller's district because of his corrupt values, in my estimation. I know that they're not found, by and large, in Schumer's backyard in Sheepshead Bay. They can't make boys like this anymore. Instead, they produce potheads who go to film school at NYU and then can't even make a commercial. But nevertheless, I go on the ship last night. I'm having a nice time. The food is, Navy food, not great. Truthfully, I was going to go to Chinese food after. I learned in the pay. I mean, I'm not into frozen. So I had a couple of beers. Their beer selection was very good. I met a guy on the ship who actually survived the sinking of the USS Pennsylvania at Pearl Harbor. The guy has to be 90. Spry as a spring lamb. I posed a picture with him. I said, "You survived the sinking of the Pennsylvania?" He says, "Yes, I did." He said, "I was wearing a full football uniform that day on the ship as it was going down." I said, "A football uniform?" He said, "Yes, we were going to play football with an opposing ship on the deck of the ship, and I was in a uniform." I said, "How'd you swear?" Anyway, that was one story. There are a couple of stories about, war heroes that I met. As I am leaving the Bonhomme Richard, a guy came up to me. I'm not going to describe him at all for fear of what will happen to him in the Navy. And he said, "Dr. Savage, I must speak with you." And he told me what's going on in the ships. He told me that there are gangs that roam the decks of the ships at night, the equivalent of the Crips and the Bloods, on the dark decks where people are afraid to even walk on the decks of the ships, where they have divided themselves up into gangs on U.S. naval ships. He told me about the number of young women, if you want to call them that, who are coming into the Navy to get pregnant strictly for the benefits, and they get some of the most golden rewards for getting knocked up in the Navy, and then they file charges against the men in order to disrupt the Navy. This is all a product of the so-called feminist revolution in America. And then he told me what the radical feminist women are doing to the Navy from the top to the bottom, how they're actually firing men. And then he ended by this, and I'm not going to tell you who he said who did it. He said someone he knows very well with 25 years of distinguished service in the U.S. Navy was reading one of my books, and the book was open on a table when a radical feminist, one of those bowling pin women with very short hair and very mean faces, came into his office and saw my book and had him fired from the Navy just for reading my book. I said, "That can't be possible." He said, "It happened." I said, "But that's something that would have happened in the ex-Soviet Union." He said, "It's happening to the U.S. Navy under Mullen." Now, I have told you that Mullen is the most dangerous Joint Chiefs of Staff head we've ever had. He has a very fine voice, and he looks really like the role. But if you check it out, he's another empty suit appointed by Obama. And that's why the Navy can't fire a shot today. I'll be right back.